All right, we're going to walk through how to use chalk pastels. Chalk pastels can also be called soft or hard pastels, but they will never, ever, ever be called oil pastels. Those are something completely different. So below chalk pastels, I want you to write soft or hard pastels. And then I also want you to write never oil pastels. Those are something completely different that will be talked about in a different video. So your chalk pastels will come in a square prism like this. It's not going to be round, and it's not going to feel oily or wet. This feels really dry because it is really dry. It's chalk pastels. So chalk pastels are a pigment mixed with a binder. From here on out, every material that we're going to use is a pigment mixed with a binder, and the binder, how that changes is going to be what makes the material different. So in this case, it's got gypsum, gum arabic, talc, and limestone. So these materials are mixed in with the pigment, and then they're pressed in a machine to make these really hard, compact pigment sticks. And then they're dried, and then you will get the pastel pigment from that. Because it's so loose, you're able to blend it around with your finger. You can also use your kneaded eraser. It won't take up everything. So if you make a huge mistake, it won't fix it, but your eraser will be able to fix a little bit of the mistakes that you make. Okay. So using our chalk pastels, we want to write in big letters. We want to layer. Layer, layer, layer. It's very important. There will be no place on any of your art where you only have one color. We're going to emphasize no place. So all of this stuff needs to be written down in your sketchbook. And then we're also going to let's draw a long skinny rectangle. And we're going to create a value scale. We're going to put in here parentheses / shading. Okay, so value is a little bit different with color. Light color is going to equal light value. But when you get into the darker colors, it's really hard to distinguish between what is a darker value, red or blue. So some people will say red is darker, and some people will say blue is darker. And the correct answer is they're both darker. It just depends on what you're using them with. So if you're using a bunch of oranges and reds, oranges and yellows, then red is going to be the darker version of that color. If you're using a bunch of greens and blues, then blue and purple will be the darker version. So the darker darker value is dependent on what's around it. We'll say surrounding colors. I'm going to throw this word in here, analogous. I want you to write it down. And we're going to call it Neighbor Colors. And they look really good together. Analogous colors also are what you're going to use for your value scales. Create shadows. So something you guys really struggled with your black and white was getting shadows. So we're going to spend a lot less time on value scales and a lot more time on building up form and developing that kind of skill there. So with my chalk pastel, I'm going to start with my lightest color, and I'm going to go ahead and choose to do the yellow as my lightest color. So I have my chalk pastel stick here. I'm going to fill it in. I'm going to go a little bit beyond where I wanted to go. And I think I'm going to go the orange-red route. So I'm going to take my orange, and I'm going to go on top. I'm not pushing down very hard. I'm just lightly layering my orange on there. I'm going to take my red and do the same thing. It's giving me candy corn vibes right now. So right now, this is only yellow, this is only orange, and this is only red, but I don't want that. I'm going to go back in with my pastels and start building up where they mix. I'm going to start building up the layers. I might even take a little bit of purple and come in here if I wanted this to get even darker. Now that I have that, you can take your blending stump, or in this case, I'm just going to use my finger because I just have this kind of large area that I can use. Can go in circular motions and blend just like you did with your chalk pastel or your charcoal. What you're not going to do is you're not going to just go like that and blend it all out. That would make a big old mess. I'm also not going to take this purpley finger that I have now and go back over to the orange. If I need to come back over this side, I can use a new finger. I'd also keep a tissue around so you can wipe your fingers off. So I got a little bit outside of the lines there, so I'm just going to take my eraser, erase it, make it all nice and neat. It's actually, I keep blowing it off because I'm the only person at my desk. But if you're at a table that has more than just you, I would pick it up and tap it on the table. Don't blow it because you could blow it in somebody's faces. So one thing that you can do with your chalk pastel is you can use the side of your chalk pastel. You can kind of create texture with the side. You can create these little fans. You can do what's called scumbling, which is where you just kind of make your marks. And in all of these cases, we're going to layer similar colors. I can, after I've made my marks with using the side of my pastel, I could go in and smear it around if I want to. Or I could leave it like that. It just depends on the look I'm going for. What you can't do when you're filling in your picture is you can't just say I want to do a circle. You can't just draw like scribbles like that and then assume that you're going to get your whole shape filled in, because you're always going to see those scribbles. You still want to take your time and be neat. And then you can blend it out. See how much better that looks? I'm going to move the camera here for a second. Sorry there. Okay. So down in these spaces on my sketchbook, you can do a new page or you can go on the same page. It doesn't matter to me. We are going to do a cylinder. I want you to make this pretty big. We're going to do a sphere. And then I'm probably going to post another video and we're going to turn this into a tree. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my light source is here in the middle. So on this side, the light is going to be here, and on this side, the light's going to be on the top there. And I will make, this guy's going to be on the blues and greens, and this guy's going to be in the reds and yellows. So I'm going to go ahead and start by just laying down some base color. Let's do this one. So I'm still going to follow the shape of the object. I want to make sure that all of the details are visible. There we go. This will be much easier to blend with. Alright, so there is my cylinder. Let me clean up around my edges. I had said use a kneaded eraser, but honestly these little mechanical pencil erasers are really good. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and do my sphere. So now my light source is coming in from this side. I'm going to give it a little bit of white. I honestly could have come in here and put a little bit of white in there. So I just put a little white down first. Then I'm going to take my, so here's where it gets confusing because these are my three colors. Which one's darker, this one or this one? In my opinion right now, I'm going to use this one to be my lighter value. If this were a darker blue, it might have changed my opinion, but I'm going to fill in a lot of the space with my blue. And then I will come in with my pink and go right on top of it, following the shape. And then taking my purple and I will take my freshly ungreened fingers, start in the lightest spot and work my way down. See it in this area up here. I'm going to take my blending stump, fresh finger, I think I need to go in with a little bit more blue in this area. So it's just a matter, it's a push and a pull. You see what you need to add, you step back, you add it, you see what needs to be erased, you do that, you look back, you see how it looks from there. Okay, I'm going to go in with my eraser because we like to keep things clean. I don't want to see a whole bunch of chalk pastel smeared everywhere. Now both of these things need shadows. So we're going to say purple on both sides. The shadow should be the shape of the object. I want you to do these kind of big in your sketchbook because I want you to have room. Chalk pastels are really finicky and they also are big. They take up a lot of space. And I think I'll even mix in a little bit of dark in here. I don't want a ton because I don't want it to be overpowering. But I do want a little bit more shadow on there. So I made a mistake here and I got a little bit of green. I'm sorry, a little bit of purple on the green. So I can try to go in and smear it away and then rebuild. But generally speaking, with pastels, you kind of get what you end with. There's not a lot of erasing that you can do to save. Guess that worked a little bit. So there are my forms. So now on a new sheet of paper, like a full sheet, I want you to make a tree. Let me pause and I will get my paper ready and I will do that with you here. All right, so I have my paper changed and I'm kind of zoomed out as far as I can make it. So I'm going to try to keep my drawing in here. I'm sorry if I go outside of my drawing. With my really light color, I'm going to go ahead and just go in with green. I'm going to kind of draw the shape of a tree. I'm going to do a naked tree because it is fall. So So I'm just going to kind of come in here, give him some limbs. I'm always confused about trees when you're drawing trees, how to end the top. I think we're just going to do some limbs. I'm real loosey-goosey with this right now. We'll add some branches in. We'll kind of start with that. So I just loosely drew that in there. So what color are trees? The bark is usually brown, right? But I'm not going to go in right away with my brown. I want my brown to be like my last color that I put on. So I'm going to take my blue and go on and start getting some undertones. So I'm just going to go in. I'm going to say that my sun is coming from over here. Come in and get some undertones laid down. I'm not going to fill the whole thing in with blue. I'm going to start putting my blue on the bottoms of my limbs. Anything that's not getting direct sunlight. And like over here, this is all getting direct sunlight, so I'm not going to really put too much on that side. It's looking real rocky so far, but hang with me. I'm going to do a little bit more blue in here. Okay, I'm going to go and start layering up some more darks. At this point, we're still real loose because we're going to go on top of this with our other colors anyway. I'm not going to go all the way over here because we are going to get some sunlight hitting over here. Okay, so brown is really just a dark orange. So I can start going in and start building up some of my oranges. I know my tree is looking mighty crazy right now. Just give him a little bit more time and he'll come together. Okay, now I think that I am about ready to start going in with my brown. The goal is not to cover up all of that blue or orange and purple. The goal is to integrate over top of it. In fact, I might go back on top with some more blue. Right about now, you're probably thinking the sevens is still the ugliest tree I've ever seen. So I can start going in and blending in my layers. Leaving the chalk pastel look is not bad, but for your base, you do want to blend. If you want to keep that chalk pastel look, you just want to, the final layer, make sure that that is not blended. I was trying to keep these limbs nice and pokey. I'm going to have to go in with an eraser though. Okay, so now I want to go in, sorry, I'm going to go in with some gray. Just start layering in some of that. I'm even going to take in some white. Just to kind of give that texture of bark. I'm going to take some more yellow. And then here's where you guys were really kind of struggling. So right now, because I have the darks over here and the lights over here, it's naturally kind of creating a rounded shape. I want you to really emphasize that rounded shape. Again, I'm going in with black because I've layered too much. I should have put a little bit less brown. But you want to make the side that is not getting hit directly by the sun a little bit darker. And that's not just on one side. That's also on all of the little things that are coming off of your tree or off of your shape or whatever it is that you're drawing. So all of these little tree limbs, they're also going to have shadow on them. So if this was a person, your arms, your legs, all of those parts would all have shadows on them, in addition to just the core, just the trunk. So you guys are kind of getting the gist there. Let me take my blendy tool. And then I will bring in a picture of a tree that I did this summer. I took a class from a chalk pastel expert. I will bring in my tree that I did with him. So you can kind of see same method, same starting out. So you can kind of see where it ended from there. I could work on this for a lot longer, and I might take this home and work on it and show you tomorrow. Okay, take my eraser in, get some of my marks where I got a little bit too loose, get those erased. If I wanted to turn this from a fall tree to a spring tree, I could like add little blobs of leaves, because leaves don't really grow in a big broccoli like a lot of times kids draw them. A lot of times people draw them. Okay, so he's not the best, but he's not the worst. He's not quite done yet. I'll show you him finished tomorrow or whenever we get around to it. Good luck.